Hey guys, it's Skybird, and I'm surprised yesterday's video actually did really well. This is a bit of a follow-up on that, so if you guys did enjoy that video, then stay tuned. But I feel a little bit bad because that video focused pretty heavily on an Ornithopter build that I kind of ended up scrapping. Well, not exactly. It is still sitting next to me, but it's not the route I'm going in anymore. So we're actually going to focus on the brand new Ornithopter. Before we get into that, though, I just want to say, hey, subscribe. It's free. It really helps out, and so many of you already subscribed in the last video, so thanks again for that. At the end of this video, we're also going to talk a little bit about the Glatorian project and sort of what that entails, what I'm aiming for. But without further ado, let's just get right on into the Ornithopter. So this is the old Ornithopter. This was the aesthetic that I had settled on, and even when developing it, I wasn't super happy with it. It's still a really fascinating build, and it looks cool. There's a lot of really interesting things going on in here, but there's one particular thing about this piece that I don't like. Well, two, kind of. First of all, the function is a bit clunky, and it can get locked up, which is not exciting, but more importantly, this has a scrappy feel to it, which is not a bad aesthetic if that's what you're going for, but I really wasn't. And so when I sat down and had this idea in mind, I was like, this isn't what I want, right? And that's okay, because again, I can admire this build. I can say that I like what's going on here, but I don't care for it. It's not what I was trying to achieve. Instead, I wanted something that had sort of a high craft feel. What is the difference between high craft and scrappy? Well, to me, what I think of when I hear the word scrappy is something that takes little time. Not necessarily that it takes little time, but it sort of uses and reuses the resources you already have around you, versus high craft, which to me feels more ornate, like something that takes not just a lot of time, but a lot of skill. Not skill from a builder standpoint, but from an in-universe standpoint, meaning that I want this design to feel like if it was built in the world of Bionicle, it would have taken those Bionicle characters a long time to develop. And I'm really happy with what I've come up with today. So let's go ahead and show that one off. I've been teasing it long enough. This is the build that I have currently, and I'm super happy with it. It is still a work in project too, but this is exactly what I was going for. And what I mean when I say high craft, this probably has about the same number of pieces as that one. First of all, it is larger, just given, what exactly it is trying to achieve, but also it looks more complicated than it actually is. There's maybe 100 to 120 parts here. I'm honestly not sure, and I'm not counting the Agori in that, but it's very straightforward in terms of the way that it is built. And so this was actually inspired by this piece here, which ironically does not come in pearl gold, though granted, there are bootleg pearl gold ones of these available. I hope to get my hands on at least one of those at some point in the future. But this piece itself looks like that high craft aesthetic that I was going for, right? It has this swirl. It's not just an axe, but it is an axe that someone loved and put a lot of time into, right? If this was a real axe in the real world and someone designed something like this looks like something that would take a long time to develop, to hone, to get it just right. And that's what I mean. It's not scrappy. Things aren't tacked onto it, but it's all purposeful in its design. You could think of it like when you see in fantasy world, like elven designs and constructions, that they all have this very swirly kind of aesthetic to them, and that's kind of what I was going for here as well. You can see it in this shield piece, you can see it in this little piece up here, and even in these tubes, sort of giving you that Fibonacci kind of sequence, which is a wonderful little nod there as well, and intentional. So currently, as I mentioned, this is a work in progress. There are obviously some things I'm going to change about it. For one thing, color schemes in some areas. I really like the dark orange. That was actually just kind of a filler because I didn't have long tubes in gold currently, but I have plenty of them in dark orange, so I decided to use those instead, and they work really well. Thankfully, one of the major pieces that this body is built around also comes in dark orange too, so I'm pretty happy with that, because it means that I'm going to be able to lean in that direction further. And I think I want to also maybe lean into dark brown, not just regular brown, but dark brown. It's a relatively rare color. It was not used in Bionicle Gen 1 at all, but it is an interesting color, and it's honestly quite lovely. So I would love to work that in with the dark orange and with the pearl gold. I think that really leans into the aesthetic I'm going for, but it does have a function, and this is honestly what I was thinking. Like when I developed that last function, it's clunky, and I've developed so many Dragonfly builds in the past. Why would I not just use one of the mechanisms I designed for those? Which is exactly what this is. This is way more efficient, and you can see it's just a little bit of movement there that actually moves these wings back and forth. It's so simple, and it's done with so few pieces, but it's very structurally stable. Like it's built into the actual machine itself, right? And so it's a really nice function, and it gives you really fantastic movement with the wings here. It's honest. I couldn't be happier. Now, there's a possibility, I knocked something off the desk, there's a possibility that I end up going with something a little bit closer to these weapons, the 2023 Monkey Kid weapons. I don't currently have those in my collection, so I can't test them out, but they, again, have that very swirly pattern that I'm really kind of leaning into. So in the future, when I can get my hands on some of those, there's a very high chance you'll be seeing those on here instead. Currently, you can see that this is driver forward, meaning driver is at the front of the vehicle. He's not holding on to anything, though he is locked in place, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But in the future, I'd like to add some like handlebars or something. But it'd also be very easy just to flip this whole thing around and have him face the opposite direction too. Because this trigger mechanism is basically just a switch, I can literally flip it in the opposite direction, pull the rubber bands in the opposite direction, and use the switch in the other direction as well. So I don't have to pull it this way, but I can pull it in the opposite direction. Does that make sense? Which is a lot less cumbersome than what I was doing on the last Ornithopter build, where you actually had to push the trigger rather than pull it, which is weird. It doesn't feel natural. So yeah, just super happy with how this one's coming out, guys. One of the other pieces you'll see on here, and I mentioned talking about something with the connection here as well, but I'm using the 2016 armor piece, and that will tack into the Glatorian project I'll talk about here in just a minute. But also, there's a custom piece that I'm using in here that doesn't actually exist, but it's a very simple piece that I've wanted LEGO to make for like the better part of a year now, and it's basically this just cut in half. It's that. It's such a useful piece, and LEGO doesn't make it. It infuriates me because it's so good. In this case here, all it does is the gray connector right behind the character, it locks it onto the vehicle so that it can't come off when you pull the character off, but the character, because does that not annoy you with some of the builds, right? Like where sometimes it leaves a piece behind, but sometimes it takes it with it. It's just weird. You know, it's never really like a horrible thing, but it just feels off. It feels wrong. And so this piece, it's a very simple assembly in here. I'll probably show it in a build here on Discord. Yeah, I'll probably upload it to Discord so you guys can take a look at it yourself. But suffice to say, really happy with it. Let's talk about that Glatorian project for a minute. So my idea in a nutshell, I summarized this in a previous video, but essentially is to develop a full year's worth of Glatorian Bionicles from 2010, as though Bionicle had never ended. It's just a thought experiment at the end of the day, but I'm not changing anything else about reality, right? That means that the Bionicle Star sets would have still come out, the Hero Factory sets still came out, the Ben 10 parts still came out. This is strictly a add-on to that. And it's even better because in this case here, I'm actually taking it and making it 9 Glatorian figures rather than 6. Now, a year's worth of Bionicle usually has 12 canister figures, so it is technically less than that, but I'm focusing a lot more attention on those characters, on their elements, on their backstories, and on sort of the parts involved with them to make them feel unique. You'll still get 12 Glatorian characters because it's going to be 9 canister sets, 9 Agori sets, and then 9 vehicle / airship / dinosaur dragon sets, right? I plan on doing 3 of each of those. So 3 ground-based vehicles, 3 airships like the Ornithopter here, or a skyship, which I really want to do and I'm excited about. That one's probably going to be a bit more of a dedicated video though, because I imagine it's going to be pretty large. And then of course dinosaurs and dragons, and I already have one dinosaur in mind because it was submitted to a Duckbricks contest a while ago. I do need to make it, and I need to address a major issue with it, and I'll probably redo the head on it because I want to give it a new piece. But if you are familiar with Calteryx, that is a Spinosaurus dinosaur that I designed for Duckbricks Dino contest. And I know I placed in that contest. I don't remember what place I got. I think it was like 4th or something, which I was surprised, but I love the build of it, the color scheme of it, everything about it, honestly. But that build was designed originally with my crocodile head, essentially just rebuilt in a 2009 aesthetic, right? in the future, rather than giving it that head because A, it's very heavy, and B, it's very Technic focused. Rather, what I think I'll do is I'll give it a dedicated headpiece, very similar to the Finrak set. So if you guys are familiar with Vizon and Finrak, or Skirmix up there, which you can't see his head, but that has a head piece, a molded head piece. I think I would go that same route, developing something that's kind of similar to that, but like a larger, more dedicated piece. Might be a little specialized, I understand that, but we'll see how it goes, and I'm treating it in the way of sort of treating a mask, if that makes sense. So I'm really excited about this project, guys. It is going to involve some custom pieces as well. Just like Bionicle introduces new pieces for every wave, I'll be introducing sort of new pieces too. I don't plan on making these sets in real life, only because I don't own a 3D printer or anything like that. But if there is a point in the future where I get to make any one of these sets, I would love to do a video for you guys. That's probably one of my dreams, if anything. And one of those pieces, as I mentioned, that I will be taking is this piece here, the Uniter armor piece. It's honestly perfect. So literally, I'll just be taking it from 2016 and just transplanting it into 2010 Bionicle, because why not? It looks absolutely wonderful for the era and exactly the aesthetic I'm going for. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you did enjoy this video, I enjoyed making it. Thank you all very much. And if you're not subscribed, hey, you know, it's free. It does really help out the channel, of course. And as always, even if you're not, thanks so much for watching. It has been a pleasure to be here with you. Along with that, though, you can find Discord, so you can hopefully build this one for yourself, as well as Instagram and Patreon if you want to support what it is I do here, down in the description below. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.